Justin Fields broke his silence on a podcast yesterday, and it's all anyone was talking about in Chicago. Except he didn't say anything new. What he said isn't going to change anything, and all of it's getting blown out of proportion.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter, at CoxSports1. You can follow Locked On Bears on all of your favorite social media platforms, including the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can find all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. On the show today, we touch on the nonsense, and really only to make the point that none of this noise around Justin Fields matters, because I'm tired of it. And Justin Fields is tired of it too. And that's pretty understandable, and I think he comes from a pretty reasonable position here of like, yeah, trade me, don't trade me, whatever you're going to do, just get it over with so I can move on with my life. And I feel the same way. Like, trade him, don't trade him, just get it over with so we can move on with our lives. We'll go through what Justin Fields said on the podcast of the St. Brown brothers, finally answering what happened on his Instagram account and how he's been feeling about all of this stuff and why none of this matters. None of what he says at this stage of the offseason makes a difference. I mean, I wish well for Justin and happy to hear from him and all that stuff, and he deserves a voice in this, but like, it doesn't change anything, whatever he says on a podcast with Equanimous St. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So we'll kind of go through what's going on to make the point that it's not all that important, but we have to at least talk about it and address it. Like, I feel dumb, and I don't want to make you dumber for even broaching the conversation about Justin Fields unfollowed the Chicago Bears on Instagram. I mean, I've intentionally avoided it on the podcast up to this point because it's such a mid-off-season non-story where there's nothing else going on. The Super Bowl is over. We haven't gotten to the NFL Combine yet. The Senior Bowl is over. We haven't really had like anything major football related in the last couple of weeks here. You know, we have Sundays without football games again, and we've got nothing to talk about. So when some Bears fan somewhere obsessively checks Justin Fields' following on Instagram and notices that the Chicago Bears are gone, it drives an entire news cycle for multiple days to the point where he ends up going on a podcast of a teammate and answering for why he unfollowed the Chicago Bears on Instagram. And I'm left wondering why we even care who he's following on Instagram and why we're trying to make this into some kind of big story. Here's Justin Fields' explanation on the podcast with Equanimous St. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown as part of the website, the 33rd Team.
What's with the unfollow with the Bears? What's up with that?
Man, bro, I'm glad we're talking about it because why do people take social media so serious? Like,
but like, why you unfollowing the Bears?
This and that. Like, I still mess with the Bears, this and that. I'm just trying to take a little break. I unfollowed the Bears and the NFL, bro. I'm not just trying to have football on my timeline. Like, I know y'all mess with a girl, EQ, especially you. Just because you don't follow the girl on IG don't mean you're not messing with them.
That's true. That's true. That's facts. That's facts.
But you follow Luciana, right?
But listen, yeah, that's my girlfriend though. That's different. But I'm saying, like, when you're single, it's you really messing with the girls you don't follow more than the girls you follow.
You feel me?
Oh, like, so you're saying you mess with the Bears? You're saying you mess with the Bears more now that you unfollow them?
Man, it's not even like that.
Okay.
It's something that I don't want to see in my timeline. I'm about to go on vacation. I don't want to see no football. And guess what?
Just get away, get a little away from
every Bears post. It's either
let's see who you follow.
Let's see who follows. It's either draft Caleb. So it's like, bro, man, I'm tired of hearing the talk. We want
like it's annoying.
We want Caleb. Like, it's just, bro, like, it's time to just.
So you're telling me you don't follow no football, bro? You follow
I follow Ohio State football. I don't follow the NFL. I don't follow the Bears.
Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report.
It's basketball season. They're not posting nothing about football, dog.
Again, that clip is courtesy of the 33rd team there, and I was hesitant to even like play it and address it because it's, again, we're talking about who Justin Fields follows on a social media app. Like, this is such a not story. Like, this is such a thing that doesn't matter, and we only talk about it because there's nothing else to talk about. We make it matter more in 2024. But like, people are taking this as like, okay, Justin Fields was sending a message to the Bears and to the rest of the NFL that he's upset by unfollowing them on Instagram. And I don't buy it. Like, Justin Fields is just a kid. Like, I mean, he's like my age. I think he's actually like a year younger than me. Like, he's a guy who's on Instagram and was tired of all the trade talk in the same way that we're tired of all the trade talk. And sure, like, the Chicago Bears themselves aren't posting the trade talk per se, but he's trying to go on vacation and still be able to see what's going on with his friends on Instagram and not be bombarded by football stuff. Like, that all seems extremely reasonable to me. And I don't think Justin Fields expected that some Bears fan or fans, and not to like, demonize anybody here, but some fan would go through Justin Fields' follows to see if he was still following the Bears. Like, you would have to intentionally go through and check that, right? Instagram doesn't notify people that, hey, Justin Fields unfollowed the Bears. Check this out. Fields unfollowed the Bears. There's no like means of notifying everybody that happened. The only way anyone found out that he did that is someone went to the list of accounts that Justin Fields is following. They searched the word Bears and found no results. Like, someone had to be very intentionally looking for that. So Fields didn't really think anybody was going to find this and didn't think it would be this big message or this big blow up. He just like, yeah, I still want to be able to use Instagram. I want to see what my friends are doing. I still want to post stuff while I'm on vacation or whatever. Totally reasonable. Like, that's how young people use Instagram. Like, I've seen people say, well, why unfollow the Bears? Just, log out of the account or delete the app on your phone. Like, he wants to use Instagram still. Like, this is, like, we think about it, like, athletes, they're not on Twitter anymore. They're not reading all their tweets very much, and they're not on Facebook. They are on Instagram though. Like, those athletes and young people are on Instagram all the time. And Instagram and TikTok, like, those are the apps that young people use. Fields wants to be on there. That's perfectly fine. And he's tired of hearing about the trade talk. That all seems really reasonable to me. Like, sure, I'm willing to buy that the timing of this podcast with the St. Brown brothers may be a little more intentional. Maybe he sees all this stuff blowing up and says, like, and and Equanimeous St. Brown's been trying to get him on the podcast. He goes, okay, let me go on the podcast and clear some air here. That I understand and buy, but I don't think there was a whole orchestrated plot to try and send a message to the Bears or to the NFL by unfollowing the team on Instagram. Like, he still follows the Chicago White Sox on Instagram. His Twitter account still says Chicago Bears. He still follows Chicago. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just one particular social media account, the one he happens to use the most. He unfollowed teams. He didn't want to see their stuff for a little while. I guarantee you, he's going to follow them back again after his vacation. You know what I mean? Like, even if he's going to get traded, I mean, unless he gets traded before he's back from vacation, but like, this is a temporary thing. This is not a, I'm done following the Chicago Bears. You heard him say it himself. Like, he's just a dude trying to get on with his life who's tired of all this nonsense swirling around him. And I totally empathize with that and feel like he's getting the short end of the stick here. And all of a sudden he's accused of orchestrating some kind of plot to send some big message to everybody. Like, no, it's just I hate calling him a kid because he's my age, but like, you know what I mean? He's just a young guy who, likes Instagram. He was talking about there, like, you mess with people you're not even following on Instagram. Like, whether or not he's following an account doesn't really matter at all. And we need to stop making it matter because we got nothing else to talk about in this point of the offseason. All of it is a big point to say, whether it's the Instagram thing or everything else that comes out of this, it's just noise that doesn't actually make any difference. Even if he was doing this on purpose, it doesn't make a difference in what's going to happen to him or the Chicago Bears. And I really want to hammer that point home and talk bigger picture about leverage with him and the Bears and this whole trade discussion this offseason next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp provides online therapy to help you be at your best. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get things off of our chest, and BetterHelp is here to help make that easy for you. Online therapy is a really important part of my mental health regimen. I do it every single week. And I like to compare it to going to the gym. I don't go to the gym because my body's broken, but I go to the gym because I want my body to be at its best. And I don't go to therapy because my brain is broken, but because I want my mental health to be at its best. So if you've been thinking about trying therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Because therapy can be different for everyone, and most of us have bigger problems than whether or not our quarterback is going to be traded or not. So it's important to get that stuff off your chest. BetterHelp is entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Whether it's Justin Fields unfollowing the team on Instagram or Justin Fields going on Amon Ra and Equanimous St. Brown's podcast and talking about how he wants to be a Chicago Bear and he's tired of being a Chicago Bear, like all of that is just noise. And it doesn't actually make any difference in anything that's going to happen to him this offseason. Like, this is not some orchestrated media blitz where it's like, okay, everyone's talking about me and Caleb Williams. The NFL Combine is coming up. Let me get out there and try and take some power and some leverage back and say, see, I'm the sympathetic figure here. I'm more or less, I don't want to say the victim. I don't want to like minimize actual victims of actual things, but like, there's this perception that like, oh, he's trying to get everybody to be back on his side so that the Bears are the bad guys when they trade Justin Fields. And certainly like he generally wants that as an outcome. Like he doesn't want to be the bad guy and he doesn't want to leave the Chicago Bears. Like I believe him when he says that on the podcast. He's like, I can't see myself playing for another team. I want to keep playing with this team, but I understand it's a business. That's essentially what he said on that same podcast that we heard the Instagram clip from earlier. And that's great. And it makes you feel for Justin Fields. And I don't want to see him have to be traded either. I think drafting Caleb Williams, which is going to happen at this point, and trading Justin Fields is inevitable. I think it's going to happen. Doesn't mean that's what I want for Justin Fields. I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields, the person. I like Justin Fields, the player. I find him extremely likable, extremely fun to watch. And so like, yes, when he comes on the podcast and says this stuff, the result is he looks better and he makes the Bears look bad. But I don't feel like that's like a super intentional, like, oh, I got to get my voice out there, because he's been silent through this whole time and generally doesn't do a lot of media play and attention stuff anyway. Usually he just kind of lets things blow over, which would kind of be preferable at this point, so it's not so much noise. But then also, even if this was intentional, like if we put aside for a second that I think this is all just like he happened to unfollow the Bears and it blew up in a big storm, so he's like, oh, let me clear the air quick on this podcast and hang out with some of my friends. He clearly was enjoying himself on the podcast. It was the most comfortable interview with Justin Fields we've ever heard since he's been a Chicago Bear. I think he was having a good time and letting it fly a little bit, and might get in trouble for some comments he made about the referees in the Pittsburgh game, his rookie season, where he's like, yeah, they cheated us out of that game, and he might get a fine for that, honestly, coming from the podcast. But like, he was just having fun with it, and I don't feel like it's like this big, it wasn't like the podcast starts and he goes, all right, let me talk about the Instagram thing. It just kind of came up, and maybe they intended to get to it anyway, but still, like, even if this was all an intentional push by Justin Fields as an agent to turn up the leverage a little bit here and try and really stick it to the Bears, it's not going to do that. Whether it was intentional or not, him saying these things on a podcast and him unfollowing the Bears on Instagram and him, anything Justin Fields does this offseason, like between now and the Combine, will have zero effect on how soon the Chicago Bears trade him, how much teams are willing to give up for Justin Fields, and how much the Bears are willing to accept for Justin Fields. I'll asterisk that by saying, like, okay, if Justin Fields did something illegal that would affect his trade value, like he could in theory tank his trade value by doing something where other teams would just not want him and where the Bears wouldn't want him. He could derail his career and affect his trade value, but short of like the extreme, right? That's not going to happen. Justin Fields is a good, he's a good person. He doesn't do this kind of stuff. Going on a podcast, he could go on as many podcasts as he wants. He could unfollow them on as many social media accounts as he wants. Ryan Poles is going to make the decision that is best for the Chicago Bears football team. He's going to, in his mind, roll with the quarterback that he thinks is the best for the organization. And we'll talk about this in a minute. Every single sign points to that being Caleb Williams. It's not locked in until it actually happens, but everything is pointing to that being Caleb Williams and not Justin Fields. And Ryan Poles is going to make that decision regardless of how Justin Fields feels about it. It sucks that Fields is having a bad time. It sucks for Fields. It sucks for us. It sucks for everybody that bought a Justin Fields jersey. Like, it sucks that he's going to get traded. No one really is excited to trade Fields. They're excited for Caleb Williams, but it's not like, oh yeah, get this bum out of here. That's not the perception. Almost everyone still likes Justin Fields. So it sucks. But the fact that it sucks and the fact that Justin doesn't like this and that Justin wants to be here has zero impact on Ryan Poles. Like, Ryan Poles is going to trade him if he thinks Caleb Williams is the better option and drafting quarterback is the better option. He is going to trade Justin Fields. Like, period. He's not going to go, well, you know what? We like Caleb, but Justin wants to be here. So let's pass on this quarterback that we think is better and just stick with the guy because he likes you or you don't want to upset Justin Fields. That's not how this works. And, oh, well, Justin Fields is saying how much he wants to be here, so now teams aren't going to give up as much for him. Like, why would the Atlanta Falcons or the Pittsburgh Steelers or whatever team might be interested in Justin Fields? They don't care. Like, as long as Justin Fields says, like, yeah, it's a business. I understand. He'll go play wherever he needs to go play. Like, as long as he's not intentionally tanking his own value by causing a real stir, like going on podcasts and unfollowing the team on Instagram doesn't affect that. Oh, well, the Falcons are going to trade less for him because, he unfollowed them on Instagram. Oh, they're going to trade less for him because, he really wants to be a Chicago Bear. So let's not give up as much for Justin Fields. Or the Bears say, oh, he really wants to be a Bear. So let's, instead of taking that second round pick, let's get a third. Like, sure, it could be reasonable that maybe Ryan Poles would work with Fields and say, hey, where would you prefer to go? We'll try and get you there. Like, we saw this with the New England Patriots and Jimmy Garoppolo a couple of seasons ago, or it's been almost a decade now. I don't know, a couple of seasons ago. But it was like, 2016 or whatever? When Bill Belichick traded away Jimmy Garoppolo to keep Tom Brady, he intentionally traded him to the San Francisco 49ers and took less to trade him to the 49ers because he wanted to send him somewhere where he thought he could have the best chance to succeed and also get him out of the AFC, but also where he thought it was the best. He wanted to send Jimmy Garoppolo to the best situation because he really liked Jimmy Garoppolo. And so, sure, I could see Ryan Poles doing that sort of thing for Justin Fields and saying, hey, Atlanta really looks like the best spot for you, even though, Pittsburgh is offering more, even though, I don't know, pick a team. The Raiders are offering us more. We really think the Falcons are a better spot for you, and we really want to do right by you. So we'll take a second and a fifth from the Falcons instead of a second and a fourth from the Raiders. Sure, I could see that happening. But that's not going to happen because Justin Fields goes on a podcast and says it publicly. Ryan Poles already knows that Justin Fields wants to be a Chicago Bear. He already knows that Justin Fields is tired of the trade talk. He already knows that Justin Fields is unhappy about the situation. Like, him saying that on a podcast or unfollowing the Bears on Instagram is not providing any new information to us or Ryan Poles. We didn't learn anything new from these comments from Justin Fields. Oh, he's upset? Yeah, we knew that. Oh, he'd love to be a Chicago Bear? Yeah, we knew that. Oh, I mean, the only thing we learned is, like, why he unfollowed them on Instagram, I guess, but that wasn't a story in the first place. Like, that's why all of this is just noise. It doesn't mean anything. He's still going to get traded, most likely, after the combine. His value is still going to be the same tomorrow as it was before this podcast, before the Instagram thing. It's just noise, and I'm so tired of it, and so is Justin Fields, and that's why I didn't even really want to take the time for it on the podcast today, but I want to take the time to make the point of, like, why we don't take the time for it, and why everybody else is talking about it, because they got nothing else to talk about, but it's not moving the conversation anywhere, and the conversation really isn't moving anywhere at all most of the time anyway, except from one specific media source. Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune snuck in a little something in a Q&A column, not even like a report, but just like answering fan mail, snuck in something that should move the conversation forward. And I want to start that conversation moving forward to where we really should be focusing more of our attention in this quarterback discussion next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. You can bet $5 on anything, and if you get your bet correct, not only do you get your winnings for that $5 bet, but then they're going to add an extra $150 right into your account that you can bet on anything. Like, just because the football season is over doesn't mean the football betting is over. You can bet ahead on the NFL draft, odds for a bunch of the top picks and a bunch of the top players. You can bet on futures for next season as far as who's going to win each conference, win MVP next year, the Super Bowl, etc., or all of your other favorite sports, basketball, hockey, college basketball, soccer, tennis, boxing. I mean, you name it, they've got it all at FanDuel. So now's a great time to sign up and get that $150 in bonus bets by visiting FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL and NBA. I'm tired of going back and forth and having the same conversations about Fields and Caleb Williams and what the Bears are going to do. Like, we're moving towards the inevitability here. And quietly, we got a really big step forward toward that from the Chicago Tribune and their Bears reporter, one of their Bears reporters, Brad Biggs. Brad Biggs is one of the most tied into the Bears organization reporters out there, and he doesn't put stuff out very often. And when he does, you got to pay attention to it because he's not getting anything wrong. He's shooting close to 100%, but just not a volume shooter. He's an efficient scorer there. Right? He's not chucking balls from deep, hoping to hit a three or hoping something sticks to the wall. Like, no, he puts stuff out when he knows it. And to be clear, like in this specific example we're going to get to, it wasn't exclusively a report, like he's putting it out there on Twitter to say, hey, here's a big thing I'm reporting, but gets a Q&A question about the Bears, what they're going to do with the number one overall pick, et cetera, and snuck in a nugget in here that I think is really worth taking to heart and saying, like, yes, if Brad Biggs is putting this in here, that means he's very confident it's true. And based on Brad Biggs' track record, you should also be very confident that it's true. In the Q&A, Brad Biggs wrote, and I quote, "I sincerely doubt anything has been firmly decided at this point, but I'd be surprised if the Bears don't use the number one overall pick on a quarterback. And I'd be stunned if they made a small trade down and then didn't take a quarterback. From my perspective, there's no internal debate in which the Bears are kicking around the idea of keeping Justin Fields versus drafting a quarterback. I believe the work being done is to determine which quarterback they should select. So the whole Fields versus Caleb Williams debate is a pointless exercise." End quote. Again, that's from Chicago Tribune Bears reporter Brad Biggs, who gets this stuff right all the time. And that's everything I've heard from down at the Senior Bowl. I'm heading to the NFL Combine next week. I imagine that's going to be the conversation down there too. Like, we keep asking people, like, is there any chance you think they keep Fields? What are you hearing about Fields and what are you feeling about Caleb Williams? It's like it's everyone universally says they're drafting Caleb, they're trading Fields. And Brad Biggs confirms that there. And like the key note in there is, yes, the debate is there's no point in debating Fields and Caleb Williams. Agreed. That's kind of where I've been operating from this offseason at this point. It's Fields is gone one way or another, and Caleb Williams is going to be the future Chicago Bears quarterback. But the thing Brad Biggs said in there that can maybe slip under the radar is, I believe the work being done is to determine which quarterback they should select. So it's about, the debate is not Caleb Williams versus Justin Fields. The debate is Caleb Williams versus Drake May versus Jaden Daniels versus any of the other quarterbacks just in case, but realistically, it's Williams versus May versus Daniels. Everything points to them being heavily favoring Caleb Williams, but they're going to go to the Combine. They're going to do all the medical checks on all these quarterbacks. They're going to sit down and talk to them in interviews. They're going to confirm or try and confirm a lot of the things that they saw on tape just to make 100% sure Caleb Williams is the guy that they want. And in all likelihood, that will be the outcome. But they're not stupid, and they're going to do their due diligence and their homework on Drake May and Jaden Daniels just to be 100% sure that this is what they want to do in the draft. But it's not about Fields versus Caleb at this point. That's more or less already been decided, and it's just a matter of waiting for another team to offer them the right trade compensation to move on from Fields, and that could very well happen at the NFL Combine as well. So that's where I want to move this conversation forward a bit. Like, I don't want to be on here, and we really haven't done this a lot, right? Debating, well, if they keep Justin, they could do this, and Justin's really good at these things, and Justin can still get better. And I believe that. Like, I think Justin's going to go to another team and continue to have a productive NFL career. Like, he's not going to fall off the map the way Mitch Trubisky did when he left the Bears. I think he'll still be a starter and can still, have a long career in this league. I mean, Trubisky's still in the league, but you know what I mean. And I like Justin Fields. Again, we've talked about this, but like, I'm not here to have the Fields versus Caleb debate much at all anymore, because as Brad Biggs says, like, that's settled. That's been settled. The decision is we are drafting a quarterback, period. And then it's a matter of like, okay, let's be triple sure. It's the number one overall pick. Like, let's be triple sure that Caleb is the guy and the guy that we want to go all in on. But like, we're going to take one of these quarterbacks and move on from Justin Fields. You have the number 1 overall pick. It's too valuable of an opportunity for them to get a top flight quarterback prospect that they haven't had a shot to really get it since, besides last year, they haven't had a top pick at a quarterback spot. And last year they were right to pass on Bryce Young. Maybe not CJ Stroud, but they were right to pass on Bryce Young. This year, one of these 3 quarterbacks, Williams, May, Daniels, statistically speaking, one of these 3 quarterbacks is likely to be very, very, very good. And maybe the Bears won't pick the right one of the 3, but you got to take a shot at one of the 3 to say, hey, we took a shot to try and get one of these guys that's going to be very, very good. The chances of all 3 being terrible seems pretty low to me when these quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3. Maybe none of them are Patrick Mahomes. Maybe none of them are Joe Burrow, but like they got a shot at getting you there. And at least one of them will be something good. So the Bears have to take a swing at this. And if they believe, as most people do, that Caleb Williams of the 3 is the best bet to give you that caliber of a quarterback, then that's what they're going to do. And now they're in the process of like, we're pretty sure that's what we're going to do. We just want to be 100% sure that's what we're going to do. And we can't be 100% sure until we get the medical checks at the combine, until we sit down with them and interview and actually talk to these people, these prospects in person, get to know them, get comfortable with them and who they are and how they'll fit our culture and how we like to, how we think of them as quarterbacks. And then once we check all those boxes, maybe even wait for the pro day, I guess, just to see. Probably not need the pro day, but like then we can put a bow on it and say, yep, Caleb Williams is our quarterback, trading Justin Fields. And I think they're not going to necessarily trade Justin Fields until they're like really clear on all these things. But I think this all happens, or the main action here happens at the NFL scouting combine. I don't think they're going to announce the trade during the combine, but the trade discussions are going to happen at the combine. And perhaps within a couple of weeks of the combine being over, that trade will be announced. That's what happened with the number 1 overall pick trade down last season. Like wasn't announced at the combine, but at the combine is where the Bears general manager and the Panthers general manager really kind of got rolling there. And then that carried them into finalizing the trade and announcing it on whatever that was, March 10th. I think it was either March 10th or March 16th, but I actually can't remember off the top of my head right now. So like that's kind of the timeline I'm expecting for Fields. Like they're going to decide on Caleb at the combine by getting the medical stuff and the interviews and stuff. And they're going to get those Justin Fields trade negotiations really, really turned up. And both of those decisions will be more or less finalized, by the end of the combine. It doesn't mean it's going to be announced by the end of the combine, but like things are going to be really rolling in that direction by the time things wrap up in Indianapolis. That's why I'm excited to head down there next week. We'll be bringing you updates and audio from the combine, video from the combine, any kind of news and nuggets we pick up down there right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming back tomorrow as we hopefully move past this quarterback conversation and get to like the real offseason topics we've been talking about, free agency, NFL draft, and so much more. We'll have some good guests from Indianapolis coming to you next week as well. So some fun, different variations of the podcast. And in the meantime, I'll always make sure you get another opportunity to bear down.